actions from Palm Springs, California. Do you think V's actions are justifiable or somewhat misguided?
Well, within the world of the film, they seem to me to be justifiable because he's living in an imagined world sometime into the near future, and he's been tortured and abused by particular people who are now members of the government, and he is therefore a pretty damaged individual, and there's a vengeful side to him. Well, whatever happens to you in your life kind of brings about what you do. So within the world of the film, it's entirely justifiable what he does. So, but he's slightly misguided as well. Yes. And this is from Walt Hobart in Iowa City in Iowa. What type of debate do you hope V for Vendetta inspires in moviegoers?
Well, I think the main thing I hope for moviegoers is that they're entertained. I think that's the prime objective of any movie experience, but also I think it's got a lot of ideas in it that hopefully will make people think about when, if ever, is violence justified, and like you were just talking about, and it's an open-ended question that you could debate for a long time and change your opinion on many times when new things come to light in different contexts, I think.
Oh, unscripted, Natalie, you have to ask me an unscripted question.
Okay. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Why?
Dark blue. I look good in it, matches my eyes.
Brings out your eyes.
Brings out my eyes, my beautiful blue eyes. Natalie, this is from Lisa Goodwin. Did shaving your head require much mental preparation, or was it just another scene to film?
I guess I had to prepare myself to walk into work with hair and walk out without it. But it was, another scene in the movie. But I think the whole imprisonment part was definitely something
I'm asking
had
a little
to prepare.
Supplementary question to that. I mean, what was the actual experience? Actually having it. I mean, that must have been pretty nice, having your hair shaved off on film, because it was happening on camera.
Exactly. It's very rare to be experiencing something in real life at the same time as your character.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty unusual experience.
And it did feel good to rub my hands through. Very nice.
It was very nice for me too. It's pretty soft.
Okay, unscripted, me to you. All right, Natalie. Now, you're a very smart girl.
Thank you.
And so, now, I think you speak a few languages. Is this right? Could you tell us a little bit about them and how you learnt them and why and how many you speak?
Well, the only language I'm comfortable in, as I am in English, is Hebrew, which I was born in Israel, so it was really my first language. But I had to sort of relearn it because I moved at 3, so I went back last year to Israel, restudied to get back to fluency. And then I speak, passable French and some Spanish, and I try and pick up a few words.
Did you picked up a bit of German?
Picked up a little German. You did too, I think. You just
tiny bit, yeah.
Especially menus are always the first things you learn.
But someone was, I think Maureen was saying to me today, how when you were in Japan recently, you were reading Japanese script. Is this right or not?
I took Japanese in high school, and I haven't used it since. So when I just went to Japan recently for the V press, I was trying to remember, because we learned all the reading and writing, so I was trying to remember, and I was surprised that it actually was still in my head a little bit.
And do you find learning one language makes it much easier?
Absolutely.
To learn?
I think there's something that gets, when you speak 2 languages from the time you're born, there's something in your brain that makes you able to pick stuff up a little easier. It's really exciting to get to talk to people wherever you are.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. All right, from Bill Ralston from New York, New York. You are acting in a play right now, Hedda Gabler at BAM. Do you prefer film or the stage?
Well, it sort of depends on the material, really, and also on who you're working with. I guess any experience can be, positive or negative. Generally, that working in film can help you just to be on stage, and working on stage can help you to kind of find the essence of something on film, and depending on the style of the film, perhaps highlight that just augment that in some way that's not necessarily purely naturalistic. So I find they really help each other.
Oh, I get an unscripted. This is so exciting. Do you find you get different responses with theater and and film, I guess it works too in your native Australia and in the United States, and obviously you get responses all around the world. Are there any reliable differences, different places?
With theatre, I haven't done a lot of theatre outside Australia. A little bit. I went to the Charleston Theatre Festival, Spoleto Festival once, and it was an Australian play which was received extremely well there. And this production of Hedda Gabler that we're doing at the moment is an Australian production of a great Norwegian classic. And we had an audience last night, and they were incredibly appreciative. Possibly they were kind of freer in some way than the Sydney audience. So. Wow. And yeah, with film, I don't know. Obviously, the films like The Matrix are kind of big everywhere. So.
Right. But are there different audience, habits? Like I know if you traveled in different parts of the United States, some people will scream out in a movie theater, and other places it's if you cough, people are like, shh.
No, Australia's very. You would have seen films in Australia. It's much sort of quieter and more reserved in a funny way. You wouldn't necessarily think that, but. Coming to see a movie here, I think it's much more interactive, you know. Okay, which is your greater accomplishment, becoming a successful actress or completing your Harvard education?
I don't know. I mean, both were really meaningful for me. Acting I always look at as sort of luck, because there's lots of great people who don't have the opportunity to work, and and a lot of not great people who do get the opportunity to work. So as much as I, really try and work at everything I do, I don't necessarily see it as an accomplishment as much as being really, really lucky. And school was definitely a lot more work. I definitely, if I hadn't done my work, I wouldn't have graduated. So that maybe I can take more credit for, but both are equally important in my life.
And they're both part of who you are anyway.
Yeah.
You can't kind of really divorce one from the other, can you?
Yeah, that's true. From Steve Denning in Shelbyville, Illinois. Was making another film with the Wachowskis similar or different from what you expected?
Well, this is another film that was written by Larry and Andy Wachowski, but they didn't direct it. So in that way it was fundamentally different. But look, there are similarities in the interests in I suppose thematically in the films and in the way in which Larry and Andy see the world. So from that point of view, you can draw parallels between B and The Matrix. Okay, finish this sentence. The three things I love about movies are...
I think the main thing I love about movies is that it's like a group experience where you spend 2 hours thinking about what someone else's life is like, and not just being involved in your own thing. And I think that's such a nice thing for people to practice, to look at other people's daily concerns.
Yeah.
And I like getting to laugh, which comedic movies.
You're good at laughing too.
I laugh easily and often, and I love it. And also it's sort of, I love also when movies, it's almost like traveling sometimes, getting to see what another place and another existence and another life is like. And that's exciting.
Okay, the three things I love. Well, there's probably more than three, but one of the most wonderful things about being involved in filmmaking for me is that you're learning. And I always loved school, I love learning, and I hope that your life, you're always going to be learning something. So oh dear, I'm travelling into the same territory. Being transported, I think. Being transported into other worlds. And I guess that's something which we all have in common, really, with films, that you hope to be taken somewhere else. And the third thing is...
You made me laugh, thank you.
Okay, ready?
Cut!
That's a
wrap.
That's a wrap.
Good evening, London. Allow me first to apologise for this.
The emergency channel!
I do, like many of you, appreciate the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility of repetition.
Bloody hell.
I enjoy them as much as any bloke. But in the spirit of commemoration,
Who's that, Mum?
whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark this November the 5th, a day that is sadly no longer remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak.
Let me think, just let me
I
think.
suspect even now, orders are being shouted into telephones, and men with guns will soon be on their way.
It's Chancellor Sutler.
Damn it.
Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there?
You designed it, sir. You wanted it foolproof. You told me every television in London.
Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and oppression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and soliciting
Cameras.
your submission.
We need cameras.
How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you, and in your panic you turned to the now High Chancellor Adam Sutler. He promised you order, he promised you peace, and all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent.
Inspector, you're almost through.
Last night, I sought to end that silence. Last night, I destroyed the Old Bailey to remind this country of what it has forgotten. More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed the 5th of November forever in our memory. His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. So if you've seen nothing, if the crimes of this government remain unknown to you, then I would suggest that you allow the 5th of November to pass unmarked. But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I ask you to stand beside me 1 year from tonight, outside the gates of Parliament, and together we shall give them a 5th of November that shall never, ever be forgotten.